Hello there and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Al24 News, streaming live from the capital, Algiers. I'm Abdurrahim Kashur, and coming up next in our news program. Russian-backed separatist leaders in eastern Ukraine declared a full military mobilization a day after ordering women and children to evacuate to southern Russia because of what they said was the threat of conflict. Russia's strategic nuclear forces held exercises overseen by President Vladimir Putin, and Washington accused Russian troops massed near Ukraine's border of advancing and being poised to strike. India's Punjab state is voting in elections seen as barometer of Prime Minister Narendra Modi party's Hindu nationalist reach ahead of general election in 2024. Scientists are concerned due to the environmental damage caused by the oil spill of the Caspian Road, calling government to stop its reliance on oil, looking for alternative energy source in the future. President of the Republic Abdelmajid Tebboun's state's visit to Qatar constitutes an opportunity to strengthen the brotherly relations between the two countries, deepen the bilateral cooperation, and continue consultation on Arab regional issues of common interest. Hello again and welcome to Al24 World Latest. The President of the Republic Abdelmajid Tebboune, and during the second day of his visit on Sunday, Prince Cabinet with Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the bilateral talks were extended to ministers and officials from both countries. At the end of these discussions, several bilateral agreements and accords were signed between the parties pertaining to many sectors of endeavor, such as foreign affairs, justice, energy and mines, agriculture and rural development, housing, urban planning and city and the national solidarity, family and women's affairs. To a different matter now, and with his country under the threat of imminent attack by Russia, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky received a standing ovation at the annual Munich Security Conference, slamming Western allies for not doing enough to punish Moscow and move his nation toward the safety of Western integration.
Speaking on the second day of the Munich Security Conference, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky challenged members of the European Union and NATO to take their relationship with Ukraine seriously.
We appreciate any help, but everyone must understand it is not charitable contributions that Ukraine must ask for. It is your contribution to the security of Europe and the world, where Ukraine has been in the shield for 8 years.
Zelensky said diplomacy is the only means for Ukraine to regain the territory it lost when Russia attacked in 2014. That led him to question Russian claims that they are not seeking to do so again now.
Ukraine received security guarantees when it relinquished its nuclear weapons, the world's third largest potential. No part of the territory lost in 2014 is larger than Switzerland, the Netherlands, or Belgium. And above all, there are not millions of citizens. We have no weapons, neither security, but we have the right to demand an end to the policy of appeasement and to demand guarantees of security and peace.
While Western powers have sought to portray unity in their sanctions threats, there are still some disagreements between the US and the EU. EU leaders have avoided conversations about what action precisely would trigger sanctions in hopes of preventing any open disagreements, while hoping that an attack by Russia would create the urgency needed to resolve disputes at the moment of truth.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky facing a sharp spike in violence in and around territory held by Russia-backed rebels and increasingly dire warnings that Russia plans to invade. On Saturday, called for Russian President Vladimir Putin to meet him and seek resolution to the crisis. Kremlin, on the other side, did not show any response to the Ukrainian president in his concerns for the moment. Ukrainian army reported that 2 of its soldiers have been killed and 4 others have been injured during shelling by pro-Russian rebels as forces accuse each other of a fresh attack. The
Ukrainian military said 2 soldiers were killed and 4 wounded in shelling by pro-Russian separatists in East Ukraine on Saturday, where a flare-up of violence this week has sparked fears it could be the trigger for Russian military action. The Ukrainian military said on its Facebook page it had recorded 70 ceasefire violations by separatists since the start of the day, compared with 66 cases over the previous 24 hours.
Say that the plan that we're seeing is for something that could be really the biggest war in Europe since 1945, just in terms of sheer scale. I think people need to understand the sheer cost in human life that could entail, not just for Ukrainians, but also for Russians and for young Russians.
Separatist leaders in eastern Ukraine have ordered a fully military mobilization, further escalating tensions in the region after Washington said Moscow would invade within days, and Ukraine's president headed to Europe to drum up support.
I urge my fellow citizens who are in the reserves to come to military conscription offices. Today I signed a decree on general mobilization. I appeal to all the men of the Republic who are able to hold weapons in their hands to stand up for their families, their children, wives and mothers. Together we will achieve the desired and necessary victory for all of us. We will protect Donbass and all Russian people.
As the Kremlin said that Vladimir Putin will oversee major military drills along Ukraine's borders on Saturday, the head of the pro-Russian separatist government in the Donetsk region, Denis Pushilin, released a statement announcing a war footing and urging reservists to show up at military enlistment offices.
In the midst of dangerous tensions with the West, Russia conducted an exercise using ballistic missiles. Putin had given the stars for these exercises on Saturday from the Kremlin. Hussein Brukan on What's Follow.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Saturday witnessed nuclear strategic exercises involving hypersonic ballistic missiles and other weapons, in Russia's latest show of force amid high tension with the West over Ukraine. Putin supervised the exercises from the Operation Center in the Kremlin next to his close ally President of Belarus Alexander Lukashenko. Pictures taken by state media showed the 2 presidents sitting at a large table together. Russian defense minister announced that this maneuver aimed to test strategic nuclear weapons to ensure their reliability.
The exercises of the Strategic Deterrence Forces are being carried out in the course of which tasks of joint management of nuclear weapons and weaponry of increased potential danger will be worked over in the course of committing an operation of strategic attack forces.
Russia and the United States are the world's 2 largest nuclear powers. The 2 superpowers conduct test missiles several times a year. According to the Kremlin, training was held at a test site in Astrakhan region in the south of the country, and another on Kamchatka Peninsula in the Far East. In addition, warships of the Black Sea and the Northern Fleets participated in the maneuvers. It's noteworthy that the exercises took place in parallel with the Munich Security Conference.
On the other hand, French President Emmanuel Macron will hold talks with the Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin on Sunday, which are seen as the last chance to avert a Russian invasion of Ukraine as tensions rise on the front line in the east of the country. The call will take place at 10 GMT at the time when Kiev called on its Western allies to stop policy of appeasement towards Moscow. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison is demanding answers after accusation from the federal government that Chinese warship of a laser strike attack on Australian civilians plan, describing the attack as a reckless and provoked act of intimidation.
Chinese naval vessels moving through the Arafura Sea. It's not the first time these things have occurred. I'm very concerned about the actions, though, of using the lasers on an Australian surveillance aircraft. That is, I can see it no other way than an act of intimidation, one that is unprovoked, unwarranted, and Australia will never accept such acts of intimidation.
The election rallies in India's Punjab state began on Sunday with over 21 million voters casting votes in polls viewed as measure of Modi and his party's popularity ahead of general election in 2024. The polls will show whether riding the crest of year of demonstration that prompted Modi to make a rare retreat and reject the farm rules will be enough to keep his party from making advances in India's grain bowl. A giant hydroelectric dam built on the Blue Nile River will officially start generating power in Ethiopia Sunday. For the first time, the project reached 80% completion and has been under construction for 10 years. Its completion has taken 2 or 3 more years according to the project manager and is exclusively funded by Ethiopians and Ethiopian government. Local authorities in the Greek island of Corfu said that 282 have been rescued from fire which burst on Friday on the Euroferry Olympia vessel. 11 people are still missing and firefighters are working around the clock to find them. Islam Seed.
After the blaze that burst in the Euroferry Olympia vessel between Italy and northwest Greece on Friday, which was carrying at least 290 passengers, the vessel left the Greek island heading to Italian port of Brindisi. Salvage teams have evacuated more than 280 people, whereas 11 people are still being searched for. Passengers who were on board said they escaped from hell.
The Italian Coast Guard helped us a lot. They took us to Corfu. They took us to a hotel. The Turkish embassy has also helped us a lot. We are very grateful to the Italians and the Turks. Fortunately, we're not dead. That's the most important thing. The rest doesn't matter.
Ferries operating company said the fire started in a hold where vehicles were parked. Greek prosecutor on Corfu has ordered an inquiry into the cause of the blaze. Authorities said the ship's captain and 2 engineers were arrested on Friday, but were released on the same day. The 11 missing passengers are believed to be from Bulgaria, Greece, Turkey, and Lithuania. As heavy black smoke rose into the sky, firefighting ships ringed it and worked through the night to suppress the fire.
Alleged rape victims of French former modeling agent and friend of the late Jeffrey Epstein have spoken of their disappointment and devastation after he was found dead in his Paris prison cell on Saturday. The death of Jean-Luc Brown, who is alleged to have helped obtain more than 1,000 women on behalf of Epstein and convicted British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell. Mr. Brown was found hanging in his cell at La Santé prison in the French capital at 1 a.m. on Saturday morning, according to judicial sources. On Saturday, nearly 200 people marched through the streets of Barcelona in support of rapper Pablo Hasél, who was imprisoned a year ago under Spain's gag rule. Police maintained a careful eye on protesters who marched across the city behind a banner that read, "Let's overthrow repressive laws." Canadian police used pepper spray and stun generator to clear the capital Ottawa of trucks as they moved quickly to dissipate what is left of the blockade in the front of Parliament and the Prime Minister's office. Zara Ferjani.
Significant progress was achieved on Saturday in the evacuation of central Ottawa, paralyzed for weeks by the anti-sanitary measure trackers. The police were still working to dislodge a hardcore of the protesters from the Canadian capital, spraying the protesters with pepper spray, destroying the windows of the vehicles in which some had taken refuge. The authorities had resumed in the afternoon the major access in front of the Canadian Parliament, where hundreds of trucks had been parked for 23 days.
I've been here 20 days and they're being very heavy-handed today. They're pushing back. This is extreme. This is not Canada, guys. This is a dictatorship. Trudeau is ruining our country. Get here. Don't be afraid. Stand with these people.
Police arrested at least 170 people on Friday and Saturday. Around 50 vehicles were towed away and weapons seized.
It's about to be over for now. This chapter is ending, but the message, I think, has gone through in many hearts.
Canadian police underlined that the operation is still underway and objectives are still to be attained.
They have been charged with multiple various offences, including mischief. Work is underway by the City of Ottawa to remediate and clean up the area that we have gained back today.
Moments before the muscular assault by the police, the protesters still on the spot were cleaning their snow-covered signs, denouncing the sanitary measures linked to COVID-19.
Queen Elizabeth II has tested positive for COVID-19 and has got symptoms. Buckingham Palace announced today in a statement that the palace said the 95-year-old British monarch is experiencing mild cold-like symptoms and will continue with light duties. The Queen was vaccinated against the virus in early 2021 and has since received a booster dose. Almost 200,000 British homes are still without electricity after Storm Eunice left a deadly trail across Europe and left transport network in disarray. The storm killed at least 4 people in the UK, 6 in Ireland and Belgium and the Netherlands, causing widespread disruption. Miriam Zian on What's Follow.
Storm Eunice ripped down houses and trees, crushed vehicles, and sent planes crashing on London's runways as millions of people took shelter at home to avoid violent winds. The storm left tens of thousands of homes without power and resulted in the death of about 10 people in the UK, Ireland, Belgium, and the Netherlands. As forecasters issue additional yellow weather warnings for areas of the UK, energy firms are trying to restore electricity.
Conditions that we're seeing are treacherous out there. It's been very difficult for us to actually get out to some of the remoter locations. We've got thousands of engineers that are working round the clock but really being hampered by the severe weather conditions that we're experiencing.
Train operators in the UK warned people not to travel, citing the fact that trees were still obstructing many lines after the majority of the network had been shut down. Eunice triggered London's first ever red weather alert on Friday. It was one of Europe's most violent storms since the Great Storm of 1987, which devastated the UK and northern France. The UK's Meteorological Office, the Met Office, issued a less severe wind warning for parts of the south coast of England and South Wales, stating that the wind may impede recovery operations from Storm Eunice.
We are looking at yellow weather warnings across the UK over the next 24 hours or so. Further wet and windy weather will move through across the UK. A step down in terms of intensity with winds, but still worth keeping up to date with the latest weather forecast.
The overall price for damage might surpass £300 million, according to the Association of British Insurers, based on repairs from prior storms.
The death toll from last week's landslides and floods in Petropolis has increased to 146 according to the Civil Defense, with the number of missing individuals increasing to 191 and 24 people recovering since February 15. Efforts to identify survivors amid the mountains of mud that rushed through neighborhood were momentarily halted on Saturday owing to heavy rain and the fear of additional landslides. The Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro flew over the region and characterized it as a battle scene. Scientists are concerned due to the environmental damage caused by the oil spill of the coast of Peru more than a month ago. They called on the Peruvian government to stop its reliance on oil and demanded that Peru should look for an alternative energy source in the future. Sufyan Kantouri.
scientists are concerned about the environmental harm caused by the oil leak that occurred more than a month ago off the coast of Peru. They urge that the Peruvian government abandon its dependency on oil and seek alternate energy sources in the future. Thousands of barrels of crude oil leaked from a refinery to the south on the 15th of January after a catastrophic explosion of volcano near Tonga, more than 10,300 kilometers distant. Heavy seas pounded the shore.
We are in a position to confirm that theoretically we have collected almost 98% of the oil, both from the sea and from the land.
The oil leak spread not just off the shore of Callao, but also the other beaches around Peru's coast. Following the event, the cause of the leak was attributed to the volcano eruption in Tonga that day.
If the terminal had those valves that separated and sealed the tubes, maybe a liter would have been spilled during the closing procedures. To me, that's a real cause because breakage on these types of terminals is a common incident.
The event, however, has been denounced by both Peruvian government and foreign groups. The preliminary study is still underway, but it appears that human mistakes rather than natural factors was the primary force behind the oil spill.
The United States seeks to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal, and Washington tries to impose sanctions specifically targeting Iran's oil and financial sectors. Iran, on the other hand, stepping up its nuclear enrichment program and has begun to back away from the deal, raising fears about its outcome on what follows. Zara Farjani will clarify the timeline negotiations on Iran nuclear deal from 2018 to 2022.
Zionist defense minister attending the Munich conference says a deal with Iran would not mark the end of the road, insisting that inspections of its nuclear infrastructure must continue if agreed. On Thursday, the United States reported substantial progress during negotiations in Vienna aimed at saving the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, deeming an agreement possible in the coming days. The 2015 agreement between Iran and Western powers, as well as Russia and China, allowed the lifting of international economic sanctions against Iran in exchange for strict limits on its nuclear program supposed to prevent it from acquiring the atomic bomb. The United States left it in 2018 under the presidency of Donald Trump, who considered it insufficient and reinstated its sanctions. In response, Tehran largely freed itself from the restrictions of its nuclear activities provided for in the agreement. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said on Saturday that now is the moment of truth to determine whether Iran's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers can be salvaged, and the Iranian leadership needs to make a choice. Iran's foreign minister, however, said it is up to Western countries to show flexibility and the ball is now in their court. He added Iran is ready to swap prisoners with the United States.
The Kingdom Saudi Arabia is looking to schedule a fifth round of direct talks with Iran, despite a lack of substantive progress in previous rounds. The Kingdom's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud said on Saturday that if the 2015 nuclear pact was revived, that should be a starting point, not an end point. Saudi Arabia's severe ties with Iran in 2016 after its embassy in Tehran was stormed by protesters following the execution of a Shia religious leader by Riyadh. The two regional powers launched talks last year hosted by Iraq. At least 13 people have been killed in central Somalia on Saturday after a suicide bomber detonated explosive in restaurant packed with local officials and politicians. The dead were mostly civilians and 20 other people were wounded in the town of Vladimir. Local police said that the blast caused a huge damage.
Many people have died here today. A restaurant frequented by civilians has been targeted by terrorists. The owner is also a civilian and many have died in this attack.
Thousands of anti-French demonstrators have poured into the streets of the Malian capital Bamako to celebrate the planned withdrawal of French troops from the former country. On Saturday, Malians burned the European flag as demonstrators carried placards with messages such as "Thanks Wagner" and "France is a terrorist nation," amid smearing tension between the West African country and its former colonial power. Benin's President Patrice Talon arrives at the presidential palace in Cotonou to inaugurate a historical and highly symbolic exhibition in Cotonou, where the 26th royal treasure returned in November by France will be presented for the first time to the people of Benin, 129 years after the flight. More in this report.
Benin President Patrice Talon on Saturday inaugurated an exhibition of historic treasures returned by France in 2021, nearly 130 years after they were stolen by colonial forces. The 26 pieces has been displayed on Sunday in a 2,000 square meter space in the presidential palace in Cotonou in a show entitled Benin Art Yesterday and Today. The return of the artifacts by France comes as calls grow in Africa for Western countries to hand back colonial spoils from their museums and private collections. Britain, Belgium, the Netherlands and Germany have all received requests from African countries to return lost treasures. The 26 pieces returned in November after 2 years of negotiations between Paris and Cotonou were stolen in 1892 by French colonial forces from Abomey, capital of the former Dahomey Kingdom, located in south of modern-day Benin. The objects were taken from a kingdom, but they are returning to a republic, according to the Culture Minister of Benin. Before its unification, Benin was made up of several kingdoms, including Dahomey, which was known for its vibrant artistic culture. In the first room of the exhibition, immense black walls form the backdrop for a display of the thrones of Dahomey, including the wood and metal sculpture Throne of King Gizu.
And now for an international news within the economic sector by Hussein Burkan. Let's follow this roundup.
The U.S. lifted the ban on import of Mexican avocado, ending a week-long suspension triggered by a threat against a food inspector that halted America's primary supply of the produce. The shares of Facebook parent Meta Platforms are coming off their lowest close since May 2020 and are down more than 45% from September peak, a decline that's unmatched among big U.S. tech stocks in recent years. Inflation in Belgium rose to its highest level since 1983, driven primarily by high fuel prices. Consumer Price Index, used to measure the rate of inflation in Belgium, increased from 5.71% to 7.59% between December and January. All options are on the table regarding sanctions on Russia in the event it attacks Ukraine, including the Nord Stream 2 pipeline intended to bring Russian gas to Germany. Western powers are united in their preparation for unprecedented sanctions on Russia.
Still with the economic sector, Algerian enterprises were well represented at the Algiers Coffee and Chocolate exhibition. New Algerian small businesses are manufacturing superb chocolate and coffee products using cutting-edge technology and equipment to satisfy international quality requirements. Sofiane Kentorian, what follows?
The International Chocolate and Coffee Fair is back this year at the Exhibition Palace in Algiers. Algerian industry is growing fast thanks to government-sponsored agri-food development projects. These programs enable national cooperations to be formed in many sectors of endeavor. Algeria's main goal is to support local processing.
We had a meeting with state economists and private ones. This meeting is so important for the economy of the country, and it has to be a way to diversify the national economy. We gave you promises in the election program, and we will be on our word.
Algerian companies were present in big numbers in the coffee and chocolate exhibition in Algiers. New Algerian small companies are indeed producing good chocolate and coffee products, implementing new technology and cutting-edge devices to meet international standards and quality. In the same exhibition, Tanzania, Guinea and Cote d'Ivoire embassies were present to give an added value to the African yield in the agro-food field. Mohammed Zulkarmain, the ambassador of Bangladesh, said that Algerians are producing good quality local chocolate and that many Bangladeshi investors are interested to invest in Algerian market.
I'm very happy to join this fair, and I'm amazed to see that Algerian coffee market and chocolate market is quite vibrant, and it's quite big. And regarding and their Algerian producers are producing high-class the coffee. We are exploring the agricultural investment in Algeria, and if the law here permits, I think our investors will show their interest. And I think the future trade and investment relation of Bangladesh and Algeria is very, very bright and promising.
Rising the level of production in agriculture and industry field internationally and nationally is one of the most helpful and important.
And now for more updates all over the world, let's follow this roundup by Miriam Zian.
After overthrowing the elected President Roch Marc Christian Kabore, thousands of protesters gathered in Ouagadougou to show their support to the military who seized power in January. And in the protests, many people waved Russian flags and held anti-France banners. According to witnesses and officials in Nepal's capital, police in Kathmandu fired tear gas and water cannon to disperse protesters opposed to a US-funded infrastructure program, which was presented in Parliament for ratification on Sunday. And several protesters were injured in the clashes outside the parliament as the government put the bill before the lawmakers ahead of a deadline. Zionist police dispersed Palestinian demonstrators in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of occupied East al-Quds as dozens of demonstrators gathered to support Palestinians facing eviction by Jewish settlers. On Friday, new clashes erupted in the troubled neighborhood between Zionist police and demonstrators who took the street in solidarity with Palestinian families who were threatened with eviction from their homes in this neighborhood.
The 2022 Beijing Olympic Winter Games were officially declared finished on Sunday during the closing ceremony at the city's national stadium, the Bird's Nest, amid doping scandal and COVID-19 outbreak in the Chinese city. Islam Said has more to tell.
Amid massive COVID-19 outbreak, curtains have finally fallen on the Beijing Olympics that have been soaked into sporting drama and milestones, including Russian doping scandal of 15-year-old figure skater Kamila Valieva, and Russia and Canada's women ice hockey teams played each other wearing medical masks. Since the opening ceremony on February 4th, the Games have introduced young stars who will be remembered, as freestyle skier Eileen Gu, American skating champion Nathan Chen, and the iconic figure of winter sports, the American snowboarder Shaun White, and many others. The celebratory took place in the Bird Nest, at the presence of Xi Jinping, announcing the Games close hanging over 2026 host Milano Cortina in Italy. Fireworks lit up the night sky as the ceremony reached its climax, spelling out the words "One World." Up to 108 golden medals acquired by 27 nations, where Norway is leading on the top of the list with 16 golds, then Germany with 12 golden medals, where the host has come third with 9 golden medals.
And now in a game that was one of the great games of the season so far in the Premier League between the top leaders Manchester City and determined Spurs Tottenham, Kane was City champs turned from start to finish, setting up Dejan Kulusevski opponent with his brilliant division of City's high defensive line in the 4 minutes. Ilkay Gundogan would rightly level matters at the 33rd minute, but having resisted heavy pressure upon the restart, Riyad Mahrez dispatched his penalty with assurance highly into the net in the 92nd minute, but Kane would have the final say to spark White scene with a header into the 95 minutes. And just after the game, Pep Guardiola insisted Manchester City did not need to lose to understand how hard defending the title in the Premier League.
I said weeks ago that we need to win a lot of points, and we knew it. So the rivals are so every team play for many things, for the champion, for Champions League, Europa League, from to not being relegated, and every game will be a big battle. We know that, so we knew it, and now we know it. So it will be good to understand how difficult it is. And since October, we didn't lose one game in the Premier League. That shows how good we have done. And now it's recover. And knowing that I knew it, yes, I felt it. So I had the feeling that they have a fantastic players, a fantastic manager, and we knew after 3 defeats they will be there.
On the other side, Antonio Conte, Spurs manager, said, "Congratulations to my players because we prepared for this game very well. And after these 3 defeats, it wasn't easy, especially when you play against Manchester City, one of the best teams in the world."
For sure, it was a great win for us against a fantastic team like Manchester City. And great compliment to Manchester City, because also tonight they show it to be the best team, in my opinion, in the world, for the organization, for the players that they have, for Pep, and to win a game like this, it means that we had a perfect performance.
To this point, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a reminder of our main top stories. Russian-backed separatist leaders in eastern Ukraine declared a full military mobilization on Saturday, a day after ordering women and children to evacuate to southern Russia because of what they said was the threat of a conflict. Russia's strategic nuclear forces held exercises overseen by President Vladimir Putin on Saturday, and Washington accused Russian troops massed near Ukraine's border of advancing and being poised to strike. India's Punjab state is voting in an election seen as barometers of Prime Minister Narendra Modi party's Hindu nationalists to reach ahead of general election in 2024. Scientists are concerned due to the environmental damage caused by the oil spill off the coast of Peru, calling government to stop its reliance on oil, looking for an alternative energy source in the future. President of the Republic Abdelmajid Tebboun's state visit to Qatar constitutes an opportunity to strengthen the brotherly relations between the two countries, deepen the bilateral cooperation, and continue consultation on Arab and regional issues of common interest. That's all the news we have got for today's bulletin. Thank you so much for being with us. Our 24 news program is still rolling, so stay tuned for better information. Bye-bye.